Touhou music discs. So if you are in around the 5% of Touhou fans, you probably own one of these bad boys. A physical copy of a Touhou music album. I recently got my favorite one off eBay for 40 bucks of my hard-earned cash, so I wanted to make a small video to yap about it to release while I am on vacation. The music album that you are seeing in my hands in this awkward footage that I recorded is the 7th Touhou Hifuu music album released by ZUN, Neo-Tradionalism of Japan, released all the way back in 2012 on the 11th of August, 14 years ago in the gap year between 10 Desires and Double the Character, and 4 months after the latest Hifuu album at the time, Trojan Green Asteroid. And while it may not be the most talked about Touhou album like the big ones like Dolls in Pseudo Paradise or Magical Astronomy, which to be fair are still rightfully beloved for some of the tracks and story in the small niche that is Touhou music albums, it's basically one of my favorite ones of them all. Not mainly story-wise, but for the music in it per se, which is why I wanted to make a small video to talk mainly about that. To give you right away a very brief introduction on the world of Hifuu and what we are going to talk about to anyone who may not know, the Touhou music albums contain some little story bits in them, in a track's description, in a paper that comes included, which you can more conveniently read from the wiki like 99% of not mentally insane people do. They tell the story of these 2 university students called Maribel Hearn and Renko Usami living a dystopian future version of the outside world of the Touhou universe, which, to make it simple and funny for your internet router brain to understand, is kinda like the future that people on Twitter will say will happen if you keep generating AI videos of Family Guy compilations. Damn it! Maribel, or Mary as she's also called in particular, is a girl with psychic powers that allow her to travel to Gensokyo in her dreams and to share these visions with Renko, while also giving her the ability to see borders and boundaries. Wow, what a totally unique ability that is surely not related nor similar to another Touhou character out there. The 2 self-found their own university club called the Secret Ceiling Club, where they document and investigate the weird dreams that Maribel has, and the albums tell their silly adventures across Japan and Gensokyo, while talking about society and all that philosophical stuff that you need to have an IQ of 120 plus to understand, mainly because the way ZUN writes down all of these album stories are set up in a horrible way, that you have to read them like 3 times just to understand that Maribel and Renko went to get ice cream together. Like, only the 2 initial lines will be actual dialogue, and the rest are Maribel and Renko inner thoughts about each other or the world they live in. Now, with the Hifuu premise out of the way, before getting to the meaty and juicy part of the video, I feel like it's appropriate to give a very unfunny summary of the story in Neo-Tradionalism of Japan, since I want the video on this particular Touhou album to be as complete as possible on all fronts, but you are free to skip this if you just want to hear my music literary yappings later in the video. Not that it will make that much of a difference anyway, since 90% of Touhou fans are actually convinced that Hifuu is about Yuri. Sorry to disappoint y'all that it's not about Yuri. The story of this album picks up 1 month after the end of the last one, the Trojan Green Asteroid, in which Maribel and Renko decide to go on doing some urban exploring by visiting a totally safe abandoned space station, because we all know that an abandoned space station is the perfect place to bring your girl on a date, am I right, Renko? Well, as expected, something bad happens and Maribel gets wounded and ends up catching a mysterious disease that doctors can't seem to diagnose precisely, so they send her for the whole gap month of the story to a sanatorium deep into the mountains and keep her isolated quarantined for the entire period, until she's automatically healed and Renko passes the time doing frictions or code or something we don't really know. So after Maribel is discharged from the sanatorium and cured from Ligma, Renko comes to pick her up and they decide to go visit the actual real-life temple of Zenkuji, the one in the Touhou universe, don't worry, and ZUN even gives us some actually real historical information of the history of the temple here, which is nice to have. While visiting the temple, as they talk about the mythological distance of heaven and hell from the earth and all that boring stuff while looking at a statue of the Yama, Mary begins to think about about another one of her weird dreams that she had while she was in the sanatorium, where she drank white monster and was invited to enter Agartha. Okay, that didn't really happen, I'm sorry. This time, she found herself in an underground cave that she initially thought of being hell, but instead of being lucky enough to find a fat spider woman hanging from the ceiling and eating the jackpot, she found a strange rock fragment shaped like a magatama that she decided to pick up. What exactly is this rock? A funny looking pebble perhaps? Blue matte? Element 115? We don't know yet. The real weird thing about this rock though is that it stayed with Maribel even after she woke up from her dream, and she kept it with her, so she suspiciously asks Renko if anything important happened in the month while she was stuck in the sanatorium. Renko responds by telling her that the scientific community found some interest in a weird rock found out at sea. They supposedly belong to the 25 million years old Izanagi plate, an actual real tectonic plate that existed near Japan before disappearing. So I hope you remember your 10th grade geology lessons to understand what the hell I am talking about. But the scientists lost all interest in it after finding out that the rock has been man-modified. But a man-modified object that is supposedly 25 million years old? How the hell is even that possible? Maribel immediately comes to the conclusion that the rock that she found must belong to the Izanagi plate, and that she actually traveled in her dreams to an underground cave inside the old Izanagi plate, and not hell as she initially thought, and that both the rock and the one the scientists found are objects related to the actual god Izanagi of Japanese mythology. I am not exactly an expert nor a nerd on Japanese mythology, so to put it simply, is the guy who created Japan as far as the legend goes, but most people on the internet know him as the guy from Persona 4, and Mary decides to show Renko the rock that she found, while muttering that Izanagi created and molded both objects, and that he's actually real, like a Santa who brings you archipelagos at Christmas instead of taking your gifts as usual. I know this girl sounds like an insane conspiracy theorist up to this point, but do I really have to remind you what the average Touhou lore theory sounds like? Not to talk about the stuff that people be writing on Touhou Tumblr, but the first error in that is you checking out Touhou Tumblr in the first place. Renko looks at Maribel like, Maribel, what the fuck are you talking about? Izanagi is not real. But then Maribel puts an hand over her eyes and she goes, wow! Izanagi is real! I can see his ancient spear sticking out of a mountain I know, and it's the same material as your weird rock, Maribel! And so, they both decide to go hunt for more Izanagi objects as they run off into the sunset, hand in hand as aspirant archaeologists and grave robbers. The end. Until Dr. Latency Freak Report starts. This by far is one of the most inconsequential Touhou albums in terms of the story. It doesn't exactly push the plot forward, and the Izanagi object stuff gets swept off under the rug in future installments, but that isn't exactly a bad thing per se. It gives this album story more of a cozy vibe, but just being its own little calm temple visit and one-off episode. However, the Izanagi objects do get mentioned in Touhou 18 of all places, so that automatically gives the story Shakespearean fiction status if unconnected marketeers is involved with it. I say in general that it goes really well with the fact that this is the Hifuu album mainly based on 10 Desires, and the fact that I mentioned 10 Desires alone may help you understand why I love this particular Hifuu album more than usual, since I absolutely adore 10 Desires. But now it's time for the real stuff that I want to talk about on this album. This part of the video will require a bit more of prior musical knowledge on tuned game music and the likes, so I am sorry to anyone who might be a newbie to some of these things, but I hope you will still enjoy my ramblings as I will try to keep them simple-minded. The album contains 10 tracks total. 5 of them are remixes from Touhou games, and 5 of them are completely original tracks made specifically for the album, and they are all placed and made in an order to go along the atmosphere and story told in this album, obviously. I am mainly more interested in talking about the original tracks, since it's what I generally enjoy a lot more inside the Hifuu albums, but we also give a small talk about the remixes per se, which are still important to the general picture that I want to make, and are the Touhou 11 Stage 4 theme, Eiki's theme from Touhou 9, the extra stage theme of 10 Desires, the final boss theme from Ito Sensoku, and the stage 3 theme also from 10 Desires. Heartfelt Fancy is the first remix track of the bunch, and I say that this remix turns the melancholic vibe that the original one had into a more fast-paced and adventurous one, mainly doing that by giving it a very fast set of percussions in the background and rougher instruments, while still retaining the melody and leitmotif from the original. The best track that I compare this to is if this was almost an homage to Desire Drive. They are both stage 4 tracks after all, and both give the same sense of adventuring down a cave at high speeds if you decide to listen to them both and confront them. Fate of 60 Years is not that much change of a track. The biggest difference made in it is that the proper start of the song is ultra delayed. I hope you like Eiki's initial motive, since that is what the first minute of the song is all about. But generally, for the entirety of the song, Zoom traced the grandiose that the Eiki original theme had, for a song that is more drawn out and more akin to a stage theme, and with a way faster instrument rhythm, just like Heartfelt Fancy. Now, Real Temple Path of Yokai is one hell of a peculiar remix. Zoom took the entire concept of a song as calm as the original and turned it upside down by making it the most aggressive as he can without completely destroying any semblance to the original song, and replacing most of the goop and fart sounds. If you don't know what I'm talking about, please go listen to the original, since it's one of the most hilariously weird songs in all Touhou, with, you guessed it, more fast percussions and rhythm. This percussions part is sure pretty common around. I am sure it means nothing for the conclusive discussion of the video, right? Unknown X Some Fun Adventure is the most lackluster track of the entire album, and one who is basically almost the same as the original it's taken from. You can barely tell the difference between the two, and it's a track that I don't particularly like, so I don't have a lot to say on it, apart from that this could technically count as Giant Catfish theme for the Shit and Giggles. Let's Live in a Lovely Cemetery is the last remix track of the album, and soon turns the stage 3 track of 10 Desires into something more akin to almost a crazy theme in a Touhou game, mainly by changing almost all of the instruments in the song to more traditional sounding ones, to give it the cozy ending vibe that this album deserves for its close-off track. Now that we are done with the remixes, it's time to talk about the original tracks and why they are the real unique breakthrough of this whole album, as well as some closing thoughts after this to finally make you understand why I think that this Touhou album is way more important than it looks. Let's start with the first and my favorite track of the album, Green Sanatorium. Green Sanatorium is a track that has a certain unique mystique to it. It starts off by being a small homage to Nue's theme, truly immersed in the idea of mystery that may come from a secluded mental institution deep in the mountains, since we don't even know what weird experiences Maribel may have encountered during the stay at the sanatorium, apart from the Izanagi rock dream featured in the story. But it's also a track that tries to sprinkle in a bit of calmness in it, to signify the Pacific atmosphere of the mountains, and it works really well together. It's a very memorable motif that really sticks with you once you give it a listen, and one of the tracks that is more of a vibe to listen to, if you catch what I'm trying to say. But if you want it in simple terms, good track, me like listen. For the second original track, we have Led On by a Cow to Visit Zenku Temple. The name of this track is derived from an actual myth associated with the Zenku Temple Maribel and Renko are visiting in the story, in which an old woman chased a cow until reaching the temple and becoming a priest there, which is a fact I did not absolutely copy from the wiki. The track starts off with an unusual use of bells from Zun, and even a callback to the motif of the 10 Desires title theme, Spirit of Avarice, a goated track if I may dare to say, but the usual progression of the song really reminds me of song theme that you would hear as a title theme in one of Zun's more modern games, while having the percussions in the background to give the impression of marching, to truly distinguish itself with its own unique charm. It's kinda like a more modernized version of Spirit of Avarice, while not directly being a remix of the track per se. Wind of Agartha is the most popular track from the album. I mean, just look at the name, how the hell can you not meme it? But unlike the mystery ones that someone might associate with a place like Agartha, this track is the more traditional one of the whole album. It's the calmest one of the bunch that recalls more to Zun's usual style of composing that he had at the time. Not really much innovation in it per se, apart from the usual use of percussions in this album in certain parts of the song. But that doesn't mean that it's a bad track still. It's still really good. The funny name is just what sells it to a lot of people. Izanagi Objects is on the opposite end, the track that puts the Neo part instead in the title of this album. This is one of the very few first tracks where Zun actually decided to put a rock guitar in it for one of the more notable instruments. To put it simply, he made a Touhou 17 track 7 years before Touhou 17 was a thing. This is by far the track that comes the closest to what is basically Zun's modern style of composing. The comment might as well just spoiler the entire point of the video, but it's truly a track that you wouldn't expect to be so far ahead in Zun music style for being released in 10 Desires time. It's very aggressive, with even an hint of uneasiness in it, clashing very much with the entire cozy vibe of the story it's put in. Maybe to signal the otherworldly and powerful nature of the Izanagi object themselves. And at last, we have Gathering the Mysterious from all around Japan. And the best way I could try to describe this track is emotional? Okay, I know it's used very loosely here, and emotional as a word is generally thrown around by YouTubers to try to sound deep. But in this case, this track is the most somber sounding one of the bunch. And while I'm not exactly calm per se, it's almost a sad tone to it. However, I find it kinda hard to describe exactly by a music style perspective, and I guess it's time to reveal to you all that I am not a music composer in the slighter for you to lose all of the trust in the video that you may have had until now. But I think this is one of those tracks that you really have to give a listen to yourself to get a feeling of it. I swear, this is not me being lazy and out of ideas to write in the script. I described all of the tracks in my personal view to you, now it's your turn to go listen to the album and rate it. So those were all of the tracks present in Neo-Tradionalism of Japan. Now to answer the big $1 million question and to give this video a reason to exist, why is this seemingly filler, insignificant Touhou album from 2012 one of the biggest helpers in understanding the evolution of Zun-made music? Well, to understand that, we need to do first a bit of an experiment. Something ethical, don't worry, I am not Seiga. I want you to take a listen to Miko's theme, True Administrator, and Shimi's theme, Little Princess. Despite these two tracks being both Stage 6 boss themes, while only one game apart, they can be placed at almost two opposite ends in terms of rhythm and composition. True Administrator is a track that calmly edges you until the very powerful beat drop 2 minutes and a half in, while maintaining a certain aura of regality and elegance and grandeur that would only fit someone like Miko, while Shimi's theme puts you right into the action and tension right away from the very start. Despite being a theme associated with what is basically a dwarf family with a needle, it's purely aggressive, over the top even at times for how much it just sprouts out to give truly the intents of an epic fight going down. What I am trying to say is, there is a clear and distinct music style difference between the pre-Touhou 14 era music and Zun music from Touhou 14 onwards. I think that Touhou 14 is the first game that properly incorporates modern Zun music as we know today. All of the DCC boss themes, excluding the Tsukigumo Sisters one, ditch the elegance, emphasis on the word elegance that all the Touhou music used to have until that point, in favor of giving more hit and rhythm to the song, with a focus shift to percussions and rougher instruments specifically. Hell, Waka's theme is still to this day the most hard rock song Zun has ever made. Don't try to speak up, Sakuya, I seen your follows the work finger raised there. And Neo-Tradionalism of Japan just so happens to be the music album stuck between this musical transition between Touhou 13 and 14, a Zun's known way of testing the waters and giving us a taste and preview for this new style of music he want to begin to go for at the time. The whole entire reason why this album is called the Neo-Tradionalism of Japan, it's because its songs can be divided into two distinct categories, excluding Green Sanatorium, which I think falls into neither of them. You have the traditional songs that followed Zun's old way of making music as he always did in a more calm way, and then you have the Neo songs, which are basically Zun's first signs of him trying out his new way of composing Touhou music with a more aggressive and energetic tone to it, containing tracks from both worlds and eras of Zun music style into one single Touhou Hifuu album to listen to. If this is not Kojima levels of naming and writing, then I don't know what it is. Now, that was a lot, but obviously this is my personal way of seeing things. Now, if I am a moron who should never be allowed to speak on Touhou ever again, or just a guy with really shitty opinions, is up for you to decide. But maybe my kinda delusional way of seeing things is what makes this album so special to me. But overall, regardless if Neo-Tradionalism of Japan is considered an important Hifuu album or not, doesn't really matter at the end of the day, since the music still remains good, and whether you like it or not depends on you and your opinion only, not mine. I just wanted to make a video to yap about it and share why I like this Touhou album so much with others. In the meantime, the best I can do is to thank you, the viewer, for having endured my Touhou ramblings up until the very end of the video, and I would love to hear and discuss your opinions on this little Touhou album down in the comments. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope to see you again in the future to discuss more Touhou together on this channel. Take care everyone!